All right. So if I remember correctly, we are chapter 29, verse 31. Hi, Dina.
Hello.
How you doing?
Did you get my email?
No, I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's the one that said I was going to be a few minutes late.
Oh, well, we literally just started, but I haven't
Okay.
haven't gotten an email from you. That's weird.
Maybe Siri was on her coffee break.
No, it's possible.
Brr.
All right. So chapter 29, excuse me, verse 31.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Andrew, your mother's not here today?
She is.
Okay.
All right. Lenore, would you like to read for us?
Sure. You shall make the robe of the ephod.
No. We're verse 31. 29:31.
29 or 31? Which one?
Chapter 29, verse 31.
Page 515, Lenore.
Thank you. Okay. You shall take the ram of, is that it?
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Okay. You shall take the ram of ordination and boil its flesh in the sacred precinct. What's precinct mean there?
It says here the courtyard of the tent of meeting.
Yeah.
In the enclosed court of the tabernacle. It's funny, my translation says in a holy place.
So that, yeah, you know, that's what the Hebrew says. B'makom kodesh. B'makom kadosh. In a holy place.
Do you want to go on to 32 or not?
Well, no, hold on a second. Do you have any notes about what that holy place is, Dina?
It says in the enclosed, oh, I'm sorry.
I got nothing.
So we do not know whether this was an ad hoc decree that the flesh of the sacrifice must be boiled by Moses, or whether he was permitted to have the flesh boiled by someone else, as Ibn Ezra thinks. In any case, it had to be boiled within the sacred precinct, because it fell into the same category as public sacrifices of well-being, which had to be eaten before midnight.
Yeah.
Getting an echo?
Yes. There's
Yeah.
Are you getting it from everybody or just from Rabbi David?
Now it's gone.
Well, he's not talking. Yeah, get yourself off mute.
I'm not on mute, I was just kidding. But yes, there's an echo from that.
Yeah.
That's because it's feeding back from one of you. That was Andrew. Thank you, Andrew. Or it was Mom, one of the two. Okay, so in any case, what was I just reading? It had to be boiled within the sacred precinct because it fell into the same category as public sacrifices of well-being, which had to be eaten before midnight within the hangings of the enclosure of the tabernacle. That sounds like it was done there because it was a time restriction, but I don't. It doesn't tell us what that place is.
Well, is there a time restriction on any sacrifice that's eaten?
Yes, by midnight.
Okay, so this is the sacrifice they're going to eat, so therefore it has to be done in the same place as other time restricted sacrifices.
That echo is back.
It was Andrew again. It's all right. It's gone now. It's all your fault, Andrew.
He doesn't hear you.
No, he hears me.
No, I can hear you fine, but actually the fact that I'm causing echo is weird. I don't quite understand why.
We forgive you. It's okay. So I'm looking. I'm sorry, Dina. Why don't you continue? I'm sorry.
Well, as I said, that since this is going to be eaten, it would fall into the same rules and regulations as any other sacrifice that is going to be eaten. And according to what you just read, all of those have to be cooked and eaten within the courtyard.
Right. I'm curious about why it's called a makom kadosh though, and I'm trying to do a search to see where else it is, but I can't. What's that book called? Not a BDB. What's the other one? Not a Is it a lexicon? Biblical lexicon.
Concordance?
Yeah, I want a lexicon. I don't think I want a concordance. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know what a concordance is. I know what I got, but I don't know what it is.
Let me see. Bible Hub. Bible lexicon. Okay. No. It is a concordance. All right, hold on a second. Let's see here. This isn't going to work. Strongest concordance, Hebrew. Let me look this up. Hold on. Makom. Kadosh. Nothing. Really? All right. Oh, it's okay. That's curious to me why it's called Makom Kadosh there. Why don't they just say the Ohel? I don't know. All right, we could probably keep going.
Andrew, does yours say just a holy place, or does it have something else? Because Fox sometimes does other stuff.
And you want me to go on?
No, hold
Wait
on
a
a
minute.
second.
I want to get Andrew's answer. Are you there? Wave if you're there.
You're still muted, I think, Andrew.
No, his mute symbol is off.
Get that.
Okay, can't hear you. Are you saying anything?
Whatever it is, it's probably so wise and rich.
They're not hearing anything.
Something's wrong with your mute button.
Did you mute him, or did he mute himself?
I did not mute him. I would never mute him. All right, well, let's keep going. Or my
All right,
microphone.
so I guess
something's going on.
we're out of luck with your words of wisdom.
Okay. Let's go.
Okay. And Aaron and his sons shall eat the flesh of the ram and the bread that is in the basket at the entrance of the tent of meeting.
So Andrew just wrote that Fox says holy shrine,
Okay.
which it doesn't really help us any, but I'm sorry, Lenore. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Except that holy shrine is more specific to the place where we're at.
Right. I find throughout the Bible that Mishkan, the tabernacle, the tent of meeting, Makom Kadosh, I find all of these to be very confusing. I often don't know what they're actually referring to. Is it the whole tabernacle? Is the tent inside? Sometimes the tent is outside. It's very weird to me.
Yeah.
Rashi has a note on that. He says, in general, offerings of the highest degree of holiness could be eaten in the entire courtyard. It stands to reason that this offering was not an exception to this rule, and that at the entrance of the tent of meeting is not to be understood in its narrowest sense.
Whatever that is.
Okay.
In other words, in the courtyard, not necessarily right in front of the.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay.
But just to be clear, in the courtyard is still inside. This is very confusing. Hold on. Let me.
Yeah, where's the courtyard and how big is it and all that?
Right.
Well, it's big enough to have an altar and a laver and a.
Right. So
Right.
the courtyard
And a ramp.
is not what we often think of. It's not outside. It's an inner courtyard, as it were. Here, I'll share my screen here.
What's funny is we went through all those measurements earlier of how big this was and what was that made out of and so forth. And here we are sitting another chapter not too far away, and we can't even hold on to.
Right. So this whole, if you see my screen now, the fence around, that is the courtyard.
And it's
Right.
inside the fence.
Yes. I
That's
believe
what
so. Right. I believe
I
so.
would totally agree with that. I was going to say it would be everything inside that boundary.
And I think that the tent of meeting is the holy, as it were, which is that tent in the middle there. I think that's what they're talking about. But sometimes the tent of meeting is different than
So the
this.
Ohel Moed is the smaller space that houses or will house the tabernacle, the
I think,
tablets,
but
and
what's,
and the incense and the showbreads, right?
I think so, but then what's the tabernacle? Right? Is the tabernacle this whole thing? By the way, if you look
Or
in
is the
bottom left,
tabernacle just the case that holds the tablets?
I don't know. By the way, if you look in the bottom left-hand corner, they did not have electricity back then. This is not an actual. Not actually, I don't know, Dean. I'm just saying that's. I find that to be very confusing. But
I would think of the tabernacle, Dina, as where the tablets are.
The gold box.
Yeah. I don't know.
yeah, I don't know. I think it's bigger than that.
The gold box or the whole tent containing the gold box and the incense burner and the showbreads. Although that's also interesting. This says the bread in the basket before the entrance to the tent of the meeting, which means that now we've got, is this a different basket or is this the showbreads not inside, it's outside?
So I think my best guess is that the tabernacle is the whole thing. And within the tabernacle, there's the courtyard and then the tent of meeting. Within the tent of meeting, there is the holy and the holy of holies. That's my best guess. And now Dina is going to do show and tell.
Well, I have to find a picture first. Don't wait for me.
All right, let's read a little bit more.
33.
Sure.
These things, excuse me, these things shall be eaten by those for whom expiation was made with them when they were ordained and consecrated. Okay, then they may not be eaten by a layman, for they are holy.
Great. You find anything, Dina?
Well, I'm looking at comments for that line, and I'm looking to see if I can find the picture of the whole setup of.
By the way, the bread here, this is not the showbread. This is remember the 3 different kinds of loaves? Isn't that what they're talking about here?
Yeah, but didn't the 3 different kinds of loaves go on the shelves of the showbread?
No, I thought that I thought these 3 kinds of bread were made specifically for this ritual.
I'm not finding a picture of
1 flat loaf of bread, 1 cake of oil bread, 1 wafer from the basket of unleavened bread. So you take those things out of the basket and then you
Yeah,
use
back
them
at
for this
23.
ritual. Right.
Okay, I'm not finding a good picture. I'm sure there's one in here, but I'm just not finding a good picture of the whole thing. I did a whole lot better with the priestly vestments.
Okay.
All right, so there's a very confusing, I found it confusing the way it's, well, they they changed the order of the reading. The order of the reading from I think from the Hebrew to the English in Eitz Chaim.
What do you mean they changed the order?
Well, she read, these things shall be eaten only by those for whom expiation was made with them when they were ordained and consecrated. And I have, they who received atonement through them to inaugurate them, to sanctify them, shall eat them.
Oh,
So,
so the Hebrew, so that's just variations in translation. So the Hebrew is
Right.
va'achlu otam, and they ate them. Who? Asher kupar bahem, those who were expiated through them.
okay, so my translation is out of order, and Lenoir's is more.
Well, I'm
in
not sure if it's out of order. I think there are different
Just from
ways to
Hebrew.
translate it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So by means of the inauguration service, the Kohanim would be elevated from their previous alien status.
What?
The word-
What? The next sentence.
Wait. Hold on.
Because my translation says, who received atonement through them to inaugurate them, to sanctify them. Those are the people who can eat it.
Yeah, but what was the alien thing?
By means of the inauguration service, the Kohanim would be elevated from their previous alien status. They're using the word alien the way Eitz Chaim used the word layman.
I've never heard it used that way.
The word, well, let me finish and see if he says anything else. The word atonement need not refer to atonement for actual sin, for there is nothing sinful about being Levites instead of Kohanim. Rather, as in this case, it can refer to leaving behind an inferior spiritual status and moving up to a higher one.
Huh.
The verse teaches that they achieve this elevation and sanctification by means of eating the portions of the offering that were allotted to them. This follows the principle that those who bring an offering gain atonement when the Kohanim consume its flesh, for it is to their merit that the servants of God enjoy the offering as God has commanded. In this case, too, the Kohanim who brought the offering gain atonement and consecration by performing the mitzvah of eating their portion of the offering.
So Chizkuni says that it disagrees with that. Oh, was that Rashi or just a comment in Eitz Chaim?
The first comment was Rashi.
Okay, so he says that this was actually expiation for the golden calf, for a very specific sin.
Well, that's funny because they're eating a ram.
Yeah.
We thought that the bull offering, which they didn't eat, was expiation for the golden calf.
Right, but maybe this is very literally. Mom, you want to show something really badly.
No, I'm just stating. But the tabernacle here in this picture is this.
Oh, it is?
Yep. And this is the gate to the courtyard. So you're right about this being the courtyard where the incense. But this
Right.
is the tabernacle here.
So
So
the tabernacle is the part that has the tablets and the incense.
Right. It's the holy and the holy of holies. Those two
Right.
sections make up
Right.
the tabernacle, which I believe is also called the tent of meeting.
So
Right.
in Freda's picture, the whole thing though within the gates is still
The courtyard.
the courtyard.
Right. In that picture, we don't really have a name for the whole structure.
And so I'm talking about inside the
Yeah, inside is the courtyard.
fence.
Okay, and then it says,
I'm sorry. Wait. Sorry. One more question. Were sacrifices ever made inside the tabernacle?
how could they be?
No, there's an access ramp outside here.
No, I understand that, but didn't we just have a whole thing about some sacrifices were made in the courtyard and others weren't, or something like that?
No, some animals were burnt outside the courtyard.
Outside the courtyard.
The
Okay,
bull was burnt outside the courtyard, outside the
okay.
whole holy place.
gotcha. Sorry. Thank you.
All right, so then it goes on. They may not be eaten. They may not be eaten by. She has layman. I have alien. For they are holy. The Torah explains why, even though a layman may eat from ordinary peace offerings, he may not eat from this one. Ordinary peace offerings are of a lower degree of sanctity, but the inauguration offerings were different, they are holy, meaning that they had a more sacred status. Therefore, a layman, that is, a non-Kohen, was not permitted to eat them. From this we derive that any layman who eats the most holy offerings is in violation of a negative commandment. That's from Rashi. So Moses didn't get to eat of this, only Aaron and his sons.
Right.
If you go by what Rashi said.
Yeah.
And it says, they who received atonement and were inaugurated. So that's not Moshe.
Because he didn't need atonement.
He wasn't inaugurated.
And he wasn't inaugurated. Either way, right, both. By the way, just one other suggestion. So about the whole expiation thing, about why they did that, your suggestion was that it wasn't necessarily about past sins. It was about just moving to an elevated place. Chizkuni says it was specifically about the golden calf. Rashi adds expiation for anything objectionably unpriestly they might have done in their previous lives. Which is interesting to me because to a certain extent, that means that they are held accountable for unpriestly actions before they were priests. Right? It's a little bit like, you know, if I worked in the government and I had security clearance and I had classified information, when I'm in the government, I understand that I cannot share that classified information. But it's almost as if they're applying that law to me before I ever got in the government. That was a terrible analogy.
But Rashi
Yeah,
says
it's not a good analogy, because if you had classified information and you had shared it, it would have been wrong.
Right. Sorry, Mom, go ahead.
Rashi says the root kafar can mean to atone or to cleanse. We find no sin that Aaron and his sons were guilty. We find no sin that Aaron and his sons were guilty of, which would require atonement.
Right.
No, what does that
Okay,
mean?
so the golden calf doesn't count.
Right.
Oh, wait. The word kafar here means that it cleanses away the alienism and repugnance manifest in their previous non-priestly state, in contrast to their kahuna.
Right. So first of all, the word kupar there is the same word as Yom Kippur. Right? It's from kapara, which means atonement. So it sounds to me like what he's saying there is, and I guess it's the same thing that I read, but yours had a lot more context to it, is that there is an element of sinfulness in just regular life.
Right.
That you don't have to do anything wrong. It's just, it's part of life. I guess it's the Yetzer Hara, right? It's that evil inclination. It's just there. It's a part of our lives. And so if you are going to be elevated to this new position, you have to do atonement, not because you did anything wrong, but because, or actually, no, I take that back. As a regular person, there's nothing wrong with the way you behaved. But if you were to behave that way as a priest, look, it's take any person take Moshe, right? So Moshe, at the end of his life, he dies and he's not allowed to go into the land. And everyone says, "What? Well, why? Because he hit a rock? Like, what's the big deal? Why does he have to suffer so much?" And one of the answers is because when you're a leader, you're held to a higher standard. And so that's what this seems to be saying here, is that Aaron and his sons are now held to a higher standard, and they have to do a certain amount of atonement for the lower standard to which they lived their lives up until this point.
Okay.
And who made those lower standards? I mean, who agreed that those were the standards? Where did the standards appear from?
Well, God. I mean, God's the one who says what a priest can and can't do. So
how, if they think somebody is really about to be in that category, You mean God would say, wait a minute, this person did this, that, or the other thing beforehand? I don't know how that.
No,
No,
because
it's-
now they're going to be elevated by this process into a higher standing.
I understand, but they can't go there unless they've atoned
Yeah.
for things they've done in the past. And how is that judged? I mean, who knows what they've done in the past?
So right. It sounds to me like there is no judgment here. It sounds to me like there isn't even a mentioning of specifics. It's just, this is atonement for all the screw ups that you did in your last life, in before you became a priest. It's not. There's no.
It's a general.
There's no itinerary of sins. Yeah.
But is there, even for the average person making sacrifices, somebody makes a sin offering, they don't announce what sin they're making the offering for. They just make the offering. In their minds, they've determined that something they did required this offering. But nobody else. I mean, it's not like going to the priest in the confessional.
Right.
Something like Yom Kippur, I'm guilty of my sins. I want to be released from my sins.
Yes, but you're not telling anybody else what those sins are. We do it as a community,
Right.
with, just general stuff. But if you've done something terrible that you personally need to atone for, that's between you and Hashem.
Well,
You don't tell anybody else.
yes and no. I mean, the list that you call general is actually incredibly comprehensive.
Oh
And
no, I understand
yeah.
that, but you don't have to sign a piece of paper or go to somebody and say, I did 1, 3, 7, 15
Right,
through
exactly.
19, 22.
Right. But they're all there. Every sin
Sinned
possible
against
is
me, and you have to ask for forgiveness. But
right.
if,
Every
if
sin
you
every sin
do something
possible
with God,
every sin possible is in that list. You just don't identify which ones apply to you, but we all say all
Right.
of them.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. There's I forget if it was a book or an article. Hold on. Symbolic exemplar. Yeah, it's a book. There's a book exemplar. It's really expensive, which is why I don't own it. I don't know why. Maybe it's not so expensive. Hold on. Here we go. Oh, it's not that expensive. The Rabbi is Symbolic Exemplar for rabbis, other clergy, and the laity who care about them in their sacred work. It's basically, this is a clinical psychologist who spent 10 years as a congregational rabbi. He talks about the challenge that comes from having to live up to higher standards than every other Jew in the world, right? That we have to be these sort of exemplars of Jewish practice, despite the fact that we are no more obligated than anyone else. But in many ways, it's similar to the idea of the priest, who, he's just a Jew. He's just a Jew, but he has all these extra levels of holiness that he has to live up to.
Yep. Okay.
You can get it. Wow. See, the reason I didn't buy it before is that it's always been like $40, but I just found it for $9. I'm going to buy it. Hold on. Guaranteed date, May 11th. Okay. Place my order. $9. Wow.
It's a used one, right?
No, I don't think so.
If there could be a deal.
It's literally $50 for a Kindle version, but for some reason now I got it $9 in paperback, so that's good. I'll take it. All right, should we keep going?
Is that a statement or a question?
It was a question. Should we keep going?
It's okay with me.
Sure.
And if any of the flesh of excuse me, flesh of ordination, or any of the bread is left until morning. This is interesting. You shall put what is left into the fire. It shall not be eaten, for it is holy.
So this goes back to what we talked about before with the time constraints.
Right.
Would that be another thing that would have to be before midnight? Is that what they're saying? Not really.
Well, it says until the morning, but
yeah.
the rabbis have crazy ways of determining.
Well, no, morning would be sunrise. I'm pretty
Okay.
sure.
So you could party all night.
Yeah.
The Kohanim could party all night.
Oh, and they did.
Lots of wine.
Yeah, and we're going to go read on to find out that it's for 7 days. So not to the level of Achashverosh, but
that would be hard to attain.
Why? I don't. Okay, so they do these sacrifices, and then they eat the meat, and they're allowed to eat it and the bread until morning. But after morning, they're not allowed to eat it anymore because it's holy. But wasn't it holy before? Why?
yes, but before it was connected to directly to the sacrifice. It's like, you sacrifice, you can't eat leftovers. Because leftovers, after a certain amount of time, would lose their, well, I can't say they lose their holiness. The whole point of this is that it is holy, and that's why they can't eat it. They can't eat it because it's not closely enough connected with the sacrifice, I guess.
Yeah.
I got nothing.
If they said you can eat it up until nightfall, that would make sense, because then you could say it's a different day. But until morning, that's not a different, that's the same day. I don't quite understand that.
I was wondering about that because it's nighttime, and they talk about midnight. I don't know.
Where do they talk about midnight?
No. I thought in general the end of the day was considered midnight, but you're saying it's not.
No. The end of the day is sundown. Okay. That's why we light candles at sundown, and why we do Havdalah at sundown. I don't really know what to make of that. All right, well, that's okay. Excuse me.
You want more?
Sure, I always want more.
I won't answer. Okay. Thus you shall do to Aaron and his sons, just as I have commanded you. You shall ordain them through 7 days.
You can keep going. No, you can keep going.
And each day you shall prepare a bull as a purification offering for expiation. You shall purify the altar by performing purification upon it, and you shall anoint it to consecrate it.
Wait, just read the next verse, because that's the end of a section.
Okay. 7 days you shall perform purification for the altar to consecrate it, and the altar shall become most holy. Whatever touches the altar shall become consecrated.
Okay.
The Mizbeach shall be holy of holies.
Yeah.
I was just thinking back to when we were trying to name the different parts in the courtyard.
Okay, so I have Holy of Holies normally designates the inner sanctum of the tabernacle, but is also used as here to denote superior holiness.
Wait, what verse are you all looking at? I'm confused.
That was for 37.
That's why. Okay.
Holy of Holies.
Okay, so it says here.
There's a comment in Eitz Chaim too.
In Eitz Chaim, there are two comments that are very interesting. 36 that says the altar is assumed to possess a natural impurity because it is a piece of furniture fashioned by human beings. It must therefore be anointed, purged of defilement, and consecrated before it can be used for a sacred function. And then it goes on for 37 to say the holiness of the altar is contagious. And I have from that, disqualified sacrificial pots may not be placed on the altar, but in certain cases, if they had been put there, they may remain there and be burned. As this phrase implies, when we're talking about kol hanogea b'mizbeach,
Whoever touches the mizbeach.
once something touches the altar, even though it should not have been there, it shall become sanctified.
And it's denoted, Dina, also in part of 37 talks about the superior holiness.
Right, but I said that. That's not just the inner sanctum. Reb Moshe Feinstein notes that in this verse and in 49, the outer altar is described as most holy, while in 40:10, the inner altar, which was the holier of the two and was in the tabernacle building, is described merely as holy. Okay,
Hey.
and then it goes on to say these designations teach two ethical lessons. And I can do that if you want, but it's, there's sidebars.
Well, can I just, so you said, you talked about the construction that because it was human construction, that's why it required purification. So
Yep.
Ibn Ezra says, you shall bring a sin offering for it and make expiation for it. This expiation is necessary because of the earth that is used to fill the altar. Who knows what idolatrous rites might have been performed on that earth? The commentators understand the word translated purge to mean purify, as by performing purification also suggests. The altar is treated the same way as the priests. So again, okay, so the altar is treated the same way as the priests. What that means is, just as the priests, before they were anointed and purified, did things in their regular lives that are not fitting of a priest, so this earth, before it is used for sacrifice, in its prior usage or life, may have been used for things that are not worthy of earth that is used for sacrifice.
Right, yeah.
I like that one better than the construction one. And this thing, by the way, this whole thing happens every day for 7 days.
Yeah.
Every single element of this procedure is, if a single element of this procedure is neglected, they are not ordained as priests. If you screw up one little thing, it's over. Rashi notes about going back to purging the altar, that literally means you shall de-sin the altar.
De-sin it?
That's funny. De-sin. And the process is called, is that of applying blood to the altar directly with the finger. Right. May not be moved, but must be burnt there. Excuse me. The touch of the altar can only consecrate an offering that was intrinsically proper, but that became invalid for some reason after being brought into the sacred area. Such as sacrificial flesh that is kept over. This is about the altar shall become most holy, and this idea that the altar that holiness is contagious. That anything that you read this before, Dina, that any sacrifice that's put on the altar becomes consecrated, even if it wasn't. So the intent, the original intent of whatever you put up there has to be kosher, so to speak, in order for that holiness to be contagious. You can't just throw a pig up there.
But what would happen if you did put, not a pig, but if you put like an impure animal?
I imagine you'd have to re-consecrate it.
How does one consecrate the altar?
By the process is called desinning, is that of applying blood to the altar directly with the finger.
Okay. But,
That's what we're talking about now, purging the altar.
okay, all right.
Yeah, that's I think what that is. And this phrase, Kodesh Kodeshim, Ibn Ezra says, this phrase, Kodesh Kodeshim, differs grammatically from the phrase with the definite article, Kodesh HaKodeshim, or the Holy of Holies. The Gentiles have made this mistake in their explanation of the phrase to anoint the most holy place from the book of Daniel, which lacks the definite article. It actually refers there to the altar, as I have shown you in my commentary to the book of Daniel. Okay, so apparently in the book of Daniel, the Christians interpret that phrase to mean the Holy of Holies, when it really means the most holy place, which is the altar, which is a different thing than the Holy of Holies. And I don't know what, I'd have to look up that reference, but apparently that's an important reference for Christian theology. We'd have
Okay.
to look it up. I don't know. All right, and then verse 38 begins the, oh my God, what we have to, more killing. It's like enough of this already.
Well, this is interesting because 38 starts what they call the Tamid offering.
Yeah.
It says, and the note I have is the offering outlined in this passage from 38 to 46 was brought every day of the year and was totally unrelated to the inauguration ritual. The Torah mentions it here to tell us that it was often even before the tabernacle assumed its full sanctity. Ibn Ezra and Shizkuni note that the Tamid, like the other offerings of the inauguration week, was offered by Moses, and the Kohanim assumed their responsibility for it on the 1st of Nisan.
Huh. Okay. Well, that's where we'll start next week with that Tamid, and we don't have much more of this. Soon we get to some juicy narrative stuff. In just a couple pages, we get there. So we'll start at 38 next week. All righty. All right, everybody, have a lovely week.
Thank you.
Feel better, Mom.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.